Tonight on the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
It was chaotic. It was full of childhood trauma, bullying, a whole life of self-doubt and low self-esteem, and a lot of joy. Don't get me wrong. It's not like there wasn't any joy. There was a lot of joy because chasing the dopamine brings joy once you get it. So
behind every struggle, there's a story, and every story deserves to be heard. This is the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Your hosts are Steve Hodgson and licensed psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis.
For a lot of people, the diagnosis comes early. It's a label. It's an explanation. It becomes a roadmap. But for others, it comes after decades of questions. Decades of feeling different, of trying harder, of wondering why everything seems just a little bit harder than it should be. Especially for women. Because for years, ADHD didn't look the way the world expected it to. It wasn't always hyperactivity. It was quiet overwhelm, emotional exhaustion, masking, overthinking, people-pleasing, and often it went unseen. Until one day, everything clicks. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because, for the first time, it finally made sense. About 15.5 million US adults have ADHD, and 50% were diagnosed as adults. 61% of women with ADHD are diagnosed in adulthood compared to 40% of men. On average, women are diagnosed 5 years later than men. And during those years, more anxiety, more depression, more self-doubt. Up to 75% of women may be misdiagnosed first, often as anxiety or depression. Women tend to have internal symptoms, overwhelm, anxiety, overthinking, less hyperactivity, less noticeable, more masking and coping behaviors. Translation: they don't look ADHD, so no one catches it. Sadly, diagnoses in women ages 23 to 49 have nearly doubled in recent years. Around 4 to 6% of adults have ADHD. Tonight's story is one of discovering who you've always been, after a lifetime of thinking you were someone you weren't. This is Ruth Danoff's story. Welcome to the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Here are your hosts.
Well, howdy, and welcome to the Your Life Matters Show podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hodgson, and I'm here with the man who probably could have diagnosed half of us 20 years earlier if we had only listened, licensed psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis. Dr. Davis, that comment actually is pretty interesting because I think we talked about that with our interview today. We talked something about that, if people would have listened to some of that stuff. We have a really good guest on with us today. And, her story is really something interesting. It's something that, we all hear about ADHD. And, but in her case, I mean, she was like 50 years old when she was diagnosed with it. So, I know I got a friend of mine, Mike, who I think was in his 40s.
Really?
When he was diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
He was a guitarist in my band for years, a good friend of mine. Actually, was the best man at my wedding, believe it or not. And he, the guest said, that taking their meds, helped him tremendously.
Yeah.
And he was able to focus for the first time. So before we get into the show, I want to just change gears for a moment, if I could. Recently, I heard from a listener who told me how when watching one of our episodes, she saw herself in the story and saw how our guests turned their lives around, and that made her decide to get help that very same day. She took the next step to regaining control over her life. Now, listen, if you guys are out there and this happens to you, or you know that in the back of your head you need to really see someone and you need a place to help regain control of your own life, I want to talk to you about Waypost Counseling, because that's one of the places to turn. You know, you may think, but I don't live in Indiana. Well, you know what? You can do it from anywhere in the United States. You can do it from your own computer and the privacy of your own home. It's just clothes are required. So I ask that if you please give a minute and give a quick listen to our sponsor.
Do you sometimes go through life and begin to think maybe something in your life feels off? Not broken, not falling apart, just heavier than it used to be. Stress, anxiety, thoughts that don't quiet down. Or maybe it's your relationship, conversations turning into arguments, distance growing where connection used to be, and you're not sure how to get back. Or maybe it's something more private, like gambling, something that started small, but now it's affecting your finances, your relationships, your peace of mind. And you keep telling yourself, I'll figure it out, but it hasn't gotten easier. The truth is, you don't have to do this alone. At Waypost Counseling, help is available for individuals, for couples, and for those struggling with addiction. And you don't even have to leave your home. If you're watching this right now, here's your reason to ask for help. We offer secure online sessions. You can talk to someone from a place that feels safe and private. No pressure, no judgment, just a conversation that could change everything. If something in you is saying, are they talking about me? Maybe it's time. It's time to listen to that voice inside that is begging you to relieve the stress and anxiety and make the call. Waypost Counseling. Dial 317-762-0904 or dial 317-659-0179. Also, you can visit them on the web at waypostcounseling.com for more information, because we do not need to tell you your life does matters. And taking that first step could make all the difference. Remember that reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength to begin to get the best of your life back again. Please, for you and your loved ones, make the call now.
Today's episode is one I think is going to resonate with a lot of people, especially women who have gone years, maybe even decades, without understanding why life felt harder than it should. Now, we're talking about late diagnosed ADHD, what it looks like, why it's often missed, and what happens when someone finally gets the answer later in life. So, Dr. Davis, let's start off. Why is ADHD so often missed or misdiagnosed in women?
So with women, it typically doesn't look like the stereotype that most people look for. You know, historically, so in the past, ADHD research really focused on typically young boys, who were hyperactive and disruptive. And women, on the other hand, are more likely to present with internal symptoms like inattention, disorganization, or chronic overwhelm, rather than outward hyperactivity. So that's one of the big reasons. And even I want to take that further even to adults, where attention deficit hyperactivity disorder absolutely presents differently in adults than kids. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that.
You know, it's one of the strange things that, and folks, please don't write to me. I'm pointing out as an example here, but a lot of times, like, you know, we've all been around certain people, and this episode has helped me realize where sometimes, like, you know, the sky is blue because the purple is green, and it's like sometimes it's like, hello, okay, what the heck are you talking about? Okay, and that's probably something that probably is ADHD, and you know, women just the generation that, you know, we all grew up in, or at least we grew up in,
Yeah.
Okay, didn't look at women and ADHD at
Yeah.
all. We just looked at that was just a normal, it's just women. Guys will joke around. And again, stop, folks. Okay, it's just, people would just, that's what we would write it off as. So, what are the most common signs of ADHD that people overlook, especially in adulthood?
So some commonly looked over signs in adulthood are, chronic difficulty with organization and follow through, starting tasks but struggling to finish them, time blindness. That's one that comes up a lot, especially for adults, because a kid, their schedule's made for them and so forth.
Mhm.
But a lot of adults will present with time blindness, forgetfulness in daily routines, even for important tasks, feeling mentally cluttered or constantly distracted, procrastination that feels paralyzing, not just avoidant, but like incapacitating, like just paralyzes the person. So, but one of the biggest indicators for adults with ADHD is just inconsistency, inconsistency in, schedule or, because a lot of times people with ADHD can function at a super high level. It's just things look different internally.
It's funny because my friend Mike is an architectural engineer. He does all the schematics and stuff,
Hmm.
for these big complexes, he's an electrical engineer, and to do all that stuff. And, the first time he told me that he had ADHD, and I was like, dude, you're a guitarist with the band, you don't get
Yeah.
lost in the middle of a solo or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, he was diagnosed by, a psychotherapist, and, it helped him tremendously, with his
Yeah.
own life, his relationships, and everything else. So, we're going to talk about this later, and I know we answered the second one, so I'm only going to ask the first one here. What is emotional overwhelm, and how does it tie into ADHD?
So emotional overwhelm and ADHD, it's really the experience of being flooded by emotions faster and more intensely than expected for the situation. And the thing is, it's not a lack of insight on the person's part. It's really a regulation issue. you know um, so ADHD affects the brain's executive functioning system. That includes emotional regulation, and emotions can feel immediate, intense, and harder to downshift for someone with attention deficit. So sometimes smaller stressors can feel big, and once the person is feeling overwhelmed, it can be really difficult to refocus or calm down quickly. And a lot of the clients that I've worked with that have attention deficit, they'll say that like the anxiety will strike, the emotional overwhelm strikes, and they're trying to navigate that. And then, they'll say, and then everybody's telling me to calm down, and that just set me off, and
Right, it sets you
it's
even
like, well,
worse.
and they're
Yeah.
telling you to calm down because they want you to calm down, but
Mhm.
I mean, it just looks different internally, and that's okay.
So, what happens over the long term? I mean, what happens when it goes undiagnosed for decades?
A lot of times people kind of get left with an impression that, they're like, just they overreact to everything, or they're just too sensitive, but I mean, the reality is that their brain is literally processing that emotional input differently than other people's.
And like you said, if it wasn't diagnosed earlier on, or wasn't something that was pointed out earlier on, like our guest will talk
Mhm.
about today, you sort of think, it's just me.
Yeah. Yeah, you
That's
start
just
to
the way I am.
internalize those things, and
Yeah,
it's, well, there must be, like, well, there must be something wrong with me,
yeah,
you know.
exactly. And it's not that just who I am, the way I am. So when someone finally gets diagnosed later in life, what typically happens emotionally to that person?
I think it's probably a sense of, you know, a simultaneous sense of fear and relief, because obviously there's some unease, there's relief that, okay, we've got a diagnosis. Now we can move forward and start figuring out how to deal with this and live in spite of it. But at the same time, there's probably, fear because what does life look like from here on out? How is this going to affect all the different areas of my life?
Right.
You know, so I'd say it's both.
Well, let's go to our guest here. Today's guest brings a powerful and deeply personal story.
Ruth Danoff was diagnosed with ADHD at 50 years old. And what followed wasn't just a diagnosis, it was a complete shift in how she understood her life, her struggles, and herself.
She now helps other women navigate that same journey, creating safe spaces for those who feel overwhelmed, misunderstood, or like they spent years trying to fit into a world that never quite made sense, just like we said. So here's our interview we had with Ruth Danoff. So, Ruth, on behalf of the Your Life Matters Show podcast, we extend a very gracious welcome to our show, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening.
Yeah. Ruth,
Thanks
if you
for
would
having
please
me.
take,
Yeah.
if you would please take us back. What was life like before your diagnosis?
It was chaotic. It was full of childhood trauma, bullying, a whole life of self-doubt and low self-esteem, and a lot of joy. Don't get me wrong. It's not like there wasn't any joy. There was a lot of joy because chasing the dopamine brings joy once you get it. So, it was a mixed bag.
You know, it's strange because you said, you also had a good life, which, but for someone to remember as much bad also as the good, that really states a lot. Because if you ask me about my childhood, yeah, I probably had some bad, but I don't think I would put that anywhere near the level, for someone that's been bullied, before
Yeah.
and stuff. I mean, going back to those years, I mean, what were some of your thoughts or beliefs about yourself?
Oh my goodness. It wasn't pretty. It's, I'm always in touch with that 10-year-old little girl inside of me, and I do the best to reparent her. But not knowing why you don't feel like you fit in anywhere, and not knowing why you can't relate to people and people can't relate to you, and you feel like you stand out like a sore thumb, is a lot for a kid to take in.
Yeah.
How were your parents during that time? Were they supportive at
They
all,
didn't
or?
know. They had no clue. It was a time when people were barely focusing on ADHD in boys, let alone little girls.
Mhm.
And my first grade teacher, one of my report cards said, Ruth is a joy to have, and she will do better if we could just get her to stay in her seat and focus.
Yeah.
And nobody thought twice about it, because I was one, I'm sure, of many little girls who were that way. And it just wasn't in the realm of thought back then.
See, really, when we were growing up, I mean, I'm thinking back, we're probably all around the same type of era
Yeah.
there, where
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself that, just a hyper kid. I mean, I had some kids in grammar school, that they used to have ants in their pants, as they used to say when we were growing up. They couldn't sit still. And yeah, we never thought of, any kind of mental health illness during that time. We basically just said, they're just this hyper kid, and just calm down.
Little
Just
boys
before,
will be little boys, right?
Yeah.
right, exactly. Yeah, they're just, they're just kids. I mean, if I can, just before Dr. Davis asks the next question, I mean, what were some of the things that you were doing? Now, you mentioned the teacher said you couldn't sit down. You couldn't stay still long enough to concentrate. What else was
Excuse
going
me.
on?
It's so funny, the dichotomy, because now I consider myself to be way more introverted than not.
Mhm.
And back then, I was just asking questions all the time. I remember when my mom would be on the phone, I'd interrupt her 50 times. Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Who's that? Who's that? Like it was, I couldn't go on and be about my business. Stuff like that, interrupting. My entire life, people have said to me, lower your voice, because I have a tendency to speak loud. And I've gotten to a point where I pretty much catch myself now. And, but there was just so many things, and always looking for a little bit of danger or to do something bad. I'm not talking like break the law kind of stuff, but just anything to grab that dopamine.
Yeah. Was there any particular event or anything that, when you decided to seek answers at 50, was there any particular thing that kind of led you to that? Or was it just enough is enough?
Dr. Davis, it's so interesting. You asked me that. I'm writing my memoir, and my editor keeps not pushing me in a good way. What was that day like, when you got your diagnosis after you left therapy? And I don't remember much about it. It was not an epic day for me. It was not monumental. It actually took me about 2 years to really start looking into what ADHD was.
Yeah.
The way I came about it, I was working at a high school at the time in the front office, and I was sitting having a conversation with two colleagues. And I had been having trouble relating to one of my coworkers, and I was trying to talk it through. And one of my colleagues said to me, have you ever looked into an ADHD diagnosis? And I had heard of ADHD, but didn't know anything about it. And so in my next therapy appointment, I talked to my therapist about it, and then I got tested, and sure enough, there she was, right there out in the open.
What did that feel like? Do you remember, like when they gave you the definitive, like, okay, this is what it is? Do you remember feeling any certain way?
I remember her telling me I can see myself sitting in the room. But it just didn't have this huge impact on me that you would think. It's not like light bulbs immediately went off, or any major shifts started happening. Now, I did have to, at the time, make an appointment with a psychiatrist to get on meds. And the day I started on meds, that was momentous.
What were the things you noticed, just out of curiosity?
Oh my gosh, I could focus. Things just felt crisper to me, and I could see what I needed to do. I'm still all over the place, and I will be forever. That's just how it goes.
And that's okay. That's the other part. I hope you're attaching that to the end of it. Like, hey, I'm just a little different, and that's okay.
I love that and embrace it about myself, and I will shout it to the rooftops today. I'm evolved so much more from back then. There goes my train of thought. There it is, out in the ether.
That's okay. I'm just curious. So really, then if I'm hearing correctly, your really big realization day was not when you were diagnosed. It was more when you took the meds for the first time, and pardon the pun. I could see clearly now. I mean, you could now see what was going on.
Right.
I mean, what? So let's focus then a little on that instead of the diagnosis day. When did you start, when you were able to start seeing clearly, realize, good Lord, that's what's been going on all these years?
Well, that moment, interestingly, did not come until I was living in Maryland at the time. I lived in Maryland for the bulk of my life. And in 2017, I moved to North Carolina to be closer to my niece who had just gotten married, and I knew the babies were going to be coming, and I wanted to be closer. And so thrilled I made that move. Once I got down here, I discovered TikTok. People had been telling me to get onto it forever. And, I wasn't that big into social media. And now it's my life. But
because it's dopamine talk is what it really is. And I'm saying that for all of us.
Amen. Yep. So when I discovered TikTok, I found my people. I found the answers. And so that's when I really started understanding what had happened before then and after then. And that is how Not Ruthless got its name. Mm-hmm. Because before my diagnosis, I was without Ruth. After my diagnosis, and to the day I die, I will be discovering who Ruth is, and I am with Ruth.
We've been saying this for a while, and it's a pattern I've noticed with a bunch of guests that we've spoken with, that social media, whether it be TikTok, Facebook, all these different groups, people have learned so much about their condition from there. And it probably also feels, now correct me if I'm wrong, it probably also feels good when you realize there were other people that were experiencing the same stuff you were.
Yeah.
I felt seen for the first time in my life. And that's a big statement.
Right.
I didn't really know what it felt like to feel seen because I never had been.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the things you talked about also was emotional overwhelm. What does that look like in daily life?
So, I was thinking about that earlier, thinking about kind of things I wanted to talk about. People who are neurodivergent are usually also empaths. And I fall big into that category. And when I have feelings, they are really big and overcome me sometimes, and incredibly off-putting to people around me. Okay. And that too is why I felt out of place my whole life, and looked down upon. I can't tell you how many times I can hear my father saying in my head, Ruthie, stop being so dramatic. Ruthie, stop crying. It's not a big deal. Ruthie, stop being so emotional.
Yeah. I get like that, myself. I mean, from the other part, from the paranormal side, I am an empath myself, but I know myself, I'll sit and watch a video, even on YouTube or something like that. Or, I can think of the one guy sitting with dogs, because this happened just last night. That's why I remember this. And he goes into these shelters and he sits with these animals that are petrified, that just got there.
I can't watch it. I can't watch
same here.
But you get what I'm saying. It's like sitting there, and that dog finally has the breakthrough where, it wants to be hugged and it wants to be loved. And, I'm glad I'm sitting in here with my dog. Because,
I'm going to cry just hearing you talking.
Yeah. It's like the tears are swelling up in my eyes and stuff. And it's like, I probably heard that, stop being dramatic and emotional too growing up. And, it's a strange feeling because we don't think we're doing anything wrong. that's normal for us.
We're just being us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I never understood it. It's like, well, what do these people have no feelings at all? I mean, what am I, the
Exactly.
only one that's so hyper sensitive to all of this? Okay, but
Yeah.
then, like I said, you start to realize there's a lot of people that are like that and feeling that, and you start to feel a little better about that. So let me ask you, there's a word, and I want to ask your definition of the word masking.
Ah,
Okay, what does it mean to you in your own words?
the first thing that came to my mind was fake. Putting on a different persona to fit into a world I was never meant to fit into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dr.
So
Davis, is that a
after,
good explanation of that? Doctor, is that a good explanation of
oh,
that?
absolutely, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just hiding the, hiding a reaction to things, just basically toning everything down or hiding aspects of it because for fear of judgment or fear,
Oh,
fear of
and
not fitting in. When so after you received the diagnosis, did you notice any shifts in your sense of identity? Like, did you think about yourself differently, and how so?
unfortunately, it took a long time for me to get there. There was so much to process, massive grief.
Mhm.
It's just massive. The what ifs and the could have beens.
Yeah.
Um, so a couple of years ago, probably even longer, started my spiritual awakening. And I am a completely different person today than I was 2 years ago. Yes, I look the same, but I am so different. I love myself more than I ever thought was capable. I
Mhm.
accept myself more than I ever thought I was capable of. And I know how smart I am and where my talents lie.
Yeah.
And my wish is that for other women to get here 20 years earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Is there anything you
really,
feel like could help that to happen? Like, is there anything we as a society or could do to
Well,
help facilitate that?
I think that is happening. Um, Things are changing, things are shifting in the universe. And excuse me, we can, I don't pay attention to any of the noise outside of me because I can't control it and I can't do, excuse me, anything directly about it.
Yeah.
right.
But love is taking over. And that's part of what I'm here for, is to help to spread that and to be of service to anyone that I can be of service to.
I heard somebody say the other day, and I don't even know what I was watching because I sometimes wake up at 3 in the morning and can't sleep, and I still watching
Hello.
stuff
Yep.
on TV. But
Get your
somebody
downloads,
said,
man.
yeah, but somebody was saying that, we are going through this shift to love, and everything that we're seeing going on in the world today is the evil fighting back on that love because they don't want us to shift to that love. And it was like, like that light bell, the light that went off in my head, and the
Yeah.
bell's ringing because, yeah, there's a good possibility of that,
Yeah.
because we look superficially at everything. And, Dr. Davis knows, and anyone who's watched the show knows I look a lot deeper into the
Mhm.
meaning of everything that's going on
Yeah.
because I don't believe anything that the media or anybody tells us anymore. We actually did a whole show on that.
Yeah.
I don't even watch news, even look up stuff anymore because it's somebody's programmed junk that they're throwing at you. The fact of the matter is I walk out into the street and I live in Florida. I live in a very nice neighborhood. And the area that I'm in is a very mixed neighborhood. It's all nationalities. Everybody gets along with each other great. And I look outside and I see the love that's here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you sit down and you're watching something on TV, and you're watching all the hate that's there. And it's like, is this manufactured or is this something they're trying to shove down our throats?
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it here, family members not talking to each other
Yeah.
anymore over hate. I have one or two myself, don't talk to me because of that. And I don't follow any of that stuff. I don't throw stuff in people's faces. Love, you know what? We're not young.
Yeah.
Anymore.
The one thing I just wanted to throw this out there, the one thing that love would truly kill, and I think this is the reason that it does get fought back against, is it would kill greed.
Ah,
I'm just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out
I
there.
love that.
Yeah, and it's really true. And if you think about it really deeply, that is really true.
Yeah.
What's
Well,
going on.
because you can't, if you operate strictly on love, like practicing the golden rule 24/7, which it's impossible to do that.
It's
But we do the best we
impossible.
can.
Mhm.
But I mean, if you do that, like there would be no greed. There wouldn't be any reason for greed. So it's kind of wild.
I think people
that becomes more and more apparent to me the older I get, I think.
I think people are yearning for that love.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh,
Right now.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And with this grand awakening that's happening, there are a lot of us that have already been through the dark days of the soul to get on the other side. And anybody that's been there knows exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we're the ones that went through it first so that we could help the others who want to wake up, assist them. But there's still going to be a lot of people who are too afraid to look inside.
Yeah.
And that's their choice. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not going to benefit from what we are benefiting from.
Unfortunately, we've learned that people don't learn from others' mistakes. Really, we repeat history.
I sure wish
over
there are
again.
many instances in my life where I sure as heck wish I would have.
Well, yeah, so do I. Okay. There's a term I'm going to ask you about, Ruth. It's called coming home to yourself. What does that mean to you?
Oh, God, I just got a warm and fuzzy when you said that. I love that you asked me that. I am my home. I am my anchor. I have never been married and I don't have children. So I am my family. I have my extended family, my siblings and their children, and I claim them all. They're all mine. But in the core of it, I am my own family. And I have learned to embrace that and let go of the shame, because people who are solo, whether by choice or by not, in society today are looked down upon and have been for years and years and years.
Yeah, what's wrong with her?
Yeah. Right. Why isn't she married? Why didn't she have what's wrong with her? And I bought into that. My gosh, I bought into it because it was shoved down my throat growing up. But it's just not true. I have such a rich and fulfilling life, and I am happier than I have ever been. And look, I welcome a partner. I would love for that to happen. I love love, and I welcome love with a partner. And if that is not what my path is meant to be, that's okay too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just play the cards you dealt.
Yeah.
Is the
And,
way-
yes, and riding the wave of what is meant for me will be in front of me.
exactly. I won't sing
What-
Que Sera Sera. Okay.
I was going to ask you, what do you feel like your inspiration to, what inspired you to start supporting other women that had, the same, that were dealing with the same things?
Right. So thank you for asking that. When I was laid off 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, from what I say is my last W-2 job ever, um, I was looking for, new jobs. And I had a conversation with a recruiter. And I had decided that in that round of looking for jobs, I was going to lead with, I have ADHD. I am neurodivergent. Oh, excuse me. And so when I started talking to this woman, I led with that. And for the next hour, we did not talk about me at all. This woman had a younger sibling who is neurodivergent and was having some problems. And I helped her through it. I helped her understand some pain points and gave her some suggestions. And
Yeah.
I hung up from that phone call with an epiphany that this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that really is when Not Ruthless was born, was after that phone call. I didn't have a name for it in that moment, but that's when she was really born.
I said it on one of the past, I think probably last week's episode. There's sometimes people relate more to someone who's dealt with the situation more than they would to, let's say, Dr. Davis. And it's not that they think what Dr. Davis is saying is wrong, but
Right.
a lot
I
of
have
people
lived
think you can't
experience.
relate as
Yeah.
much because you didn't walk those shoes.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's
honestly,
easier.
I
I'm
was just
sorry.
going to say in the treatment world, there's a big push for, like Jeff that we interviewed,
Right.
Steve, he's a recovery coach and he works with me. But that, they're finding that involving peers, in treatment for pretty much just about anything really does seem to improve results. So it's like it can't be a replacement for therapy, but as an addendum or as
No,
as
right.
something in tandem,
I
the
love
research
that
is unbelievably accurate that it makes a big difference.
because I'm not a clinician, but I have walked in your shoes.
Yeah.
I have been where you are. I have the lived experience. I have the empathy. I have the compassion. Not that a therapist isn't going to have those things. It's
Sure.
it's two different lines.
Yeah.
I always make it very clear when I'm talking about my services that I am not a clinician and I am not a therapist. I do something different than they do.
Right. And I think
Which is
that's
awesome.
important for people to know, and I'm glad you say that to people too, because there are people, I see them out on Facebook that say, don't go to a therapist or, psychologist or psychotherapist, of, psychiatrist. That's the word I'm looking for. Just, come to no, there's you're in a, like you say, an addendum of support for that.
Yeah.
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 So let me ask you, because perfect segue. What does your ADHD support sessions look like? What happens during those sessions?
With my therapist?
Yes. What you do?
Oh, what I do with other people? Well,
Right. Yeah.
I offer different packages on my website that they can focus on. But actually, what usually happens is we just have conversations,
Mhm.
and they are relieved to speak to someone that truly gets it. And that has also run into things 50 million times and had bruises all over her body, looking like I had been beaten up. But no, it's my spatial unawareness, you know.
Yeah.
I think, that's so important, but it's like I said earlier, they want to talk to someone who's walked that walk because they want to feel that they're not alone. It's
Exactly.
almost validation. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr.
Absolutely.
Davis, it's almost validation for all the experiences that they had and all those feelings that they had. It's validating. It's not me. I'm not just a nut job. Okay. There
Mm-mm.
are other people that are experiencing the same thing. Okay. I am okay. I am fairly normal. And you notice
Yeah.
when I talk about me, I said fairly normal.
I was going to correct you on that.
Yeah. So it's okay. I was there ready for it. Go ahead.
No, that's complete. Like honestly, that is completely accurate. And especially like for when people are looking, when people are experiencing a problem, we see it with addiction, any number of things. When they finally find others that are dealing with the same thing and they start talking about what's going on with them, I mean, more often than not, it's a huge sigh of relief because just like you're saying, the person goes, have they been following me around with a hidden camera? How did they know I thought? How did they know I had that thought? Or how did they know I told myself that? I mean, I remember the first time I ever went to a self-help meeting, and I mean, I pretty much was like, are they following me? Or I mean, really, because it was for the first time I had heard people actually say the things I had thought, but had always been afraid to say for fear of embarrassment.
Everybody in the world just wants to be seen. It's
Absolutely.
really so basic.
Yeah.
And, if you feel seen, man, that's a lot
Yeah.
for one human being to say to another human being, I see you, I hear
Yeah.
you, I understand what you are communicating.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do,
But
but
so
so hard to
scary to
get,
do sometimes.
and very scary.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very scary. You have to have done work on yourself, and that
Yeah.
is very scary too.
Well, yes, folks, it's that time again.
All
Yes,
right.
it's the lightning round. Yes.
Woo.
Okay. Now, Ruth, we talked about this earlier before we came on the air. That we're going to ask you 7 short questions. Please give us the first thing that comes to your mind, 1 or 2 words or short answers. And Dr. Davis and I are going to alternate
Yeah.
off of these. So the first one word to describe life before the diagnosis.
Okay, I was distracted. Ask me that again.
Okay, sure. One word to describe life before the diagnosis.
Chaotic.
All right. Oh, sorry. Let's see.
Number 2.
One word that describes your life after the diagnosis.
Seen.
Okay.
There you go. Number 3, the biggest myth about ADHD.
That it's a negative.
Oh, I love that answer. I love that
Yeah.
answer. Coffee or chaos?
Chaos every day.
Number 5, a habit that actually helps you stay grounded.
Oh, walking in nature and literally hugging trees.
Nothing wrong
I
with that.
said that to somebody the other day, a friend of mine in California, and she took a picture under one of the redwood trees, that's
Oh
part of the
gosh.
California she lives in. And I started explaining to her something I had watched, and I do myself. I have a huge oak tree in front of my house. Okay. And I still, every day when I go out to water all the plants that my wife planted outside. Okay, and I get that fun job. She spent 1 day planting, and I got to spend the rest of my life now watering. Okay, and you would think I would learn at a certain point, say, you know what, I think I'll plant them and you water from now on. But anyway, I always go and hold on to that tree, lean against that tree, because there are so many
Mhm.
properties that tree gives off and stuff that's so great
Yeah.
to our spiritual mind, to our physical body. It's absolutely amazing. We
It
could
is
probably
life.
one day do a show on that too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's see. Something small that overwhelms you that others wouldn't expect.
Oh, being caught off guard.
Okay.
Like that question.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Okay, and the last one. One thing ADHD gives you as a strength.
Oh, geez. I have to name just one. Um,
Well, it's the last question. You can name a few if you want.
Yeah.
it's my superpower. It is my everything. It is my essence. It is my core. It's my being.
Mhm.
And I love it.
Yep. Well, we got 3 additional questions we're going to ask you. Not part of the lightning round now. We're back to regular questions. But before we do that, tell us about your website, noruthless.com, not
Not
No,
ruthless.
ruthless.com. Sorry, but I need my glasses. Not
www.
ruthless.com and the services that you do offer.
So it's www.notruthless.com. My Instagram is not ruthless ADHD, and the same handle is on TikTok and YouTube. Excuse me. I offer compassionate peer-to-peer calls. There's a booking link on my website. My email, you're welcome to reach out to me, is well, I'm switching over, so I'm going to give you the old email for now, but it's not ruthless143@gmail.com. And we can talk about whatever is on your heart, in your head. It doesn't matter. It's a judgment-free zone, and you will be received with open arms.
And like I always say, all these links will be in the video's description. So, people who didn't catch it, all they gotta do is look in the written description. But I want to ask you one other question, because it was a question I asked you if you remember, when we first came into the Zoom room. Arctic undies.
Oh,
I
yeah.
forget, because we don't have that in there, and I see the chain that you're wearing there.
That's
So,
my necklace.
yeah.
So Arctic Undies is my passion project right now. It is cooling underwear for women that I am trying to bring to market. There is nothing out there like it. Everything out there right now that is cooling is
For men.
only the fabric. I have an electronic that will be integrated, and it is going to change daily life for every woman who runs hot. One of the comorbidities of ADHD is body temperature dysregulation. And I've been that way since I was a kid. I have always just run warm. And if I'm sitting for any long period of time, like on the sofa, binging something, I have to sit on a cold pack, because it's, we stay warm down there. And I want to prevent that. And I want to branch out into bras and men's products. And right now, I am looking for additional funding to continue the design and prototype stage so that we can get it on the market.
Sounds like we need to get you on Shark Tank.
I am in competition. I am in the Entrepreneur of Impact competition by Damon John.
Really?
Yeah, I made it. I'm in the top 10, which voting ends tomorrow evening. And so keep your fingers crossed for me.
Oh, definitely will.
Yeah.
Just
That's
as a little
awesome.
aside, to be on Shark Tank through normal channels, you have to already have a product that is on the market
exactly.
and has made sales.
Mm-hmm. But Damon would probably still be the ideal shark anyway, being that he's into clothing,
Clothing, yeah.
fashion, and
Yeah,
everything else, because he's already has the distribution channels for something like that
absolutely.
to get out there. So yeah,
I
that,
would, Damon John, please hit me up.
I'll have to ask. I have him on. I think it's LinkedIn. I think he's part of mine, and I think it's also on Instagram too. So I'll send him a little message and ask him about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Say,
that.
do you ever
I'll
hear
take
of
all
this
the help
stuff
I can
called
get.
Arctic Undies? And let them answer back. Hey, say, funny you mentioned that. We have this, may
Yeah.
just that little help. So
Thank you, Steve.
you're welcome.
Because that's what it's all about. It's about paying it forward. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, one of the things I've run up against trying to get this product to market is you have to have money to borrow money or to get money.
Right.
And that just doesn't make sense to me as a neurodivergent person. I can't wrap my head around it.
And the
Um,
only other thing would be like an angel investor, and
an
they're going to
angel,
want so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Or finding
and
someone that isn't looking to put sweat equity in, but believes in the product, wants
Well,
to
that's the
support
angel
it.
investors would do
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. But they also come with a hefty price tag of how much
right,
that, they're going to take the
exactly.
risk at this stage.
And
Yeah.
knowing the other thing is that you have to know someone to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well,
So
the only thing, what about Indiegogo? What if you
that's
started a campaign
Like
on that?
crowdfunding.
Yeah,
like a
crowdfunding. Yeah.
crowdfunding. I haven't quite gotten there. I'm just starting to kind of research that possibility.
Hmm.
But there are all kinds of, I thought it would be super simple, but there are challenges there also. So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, the first one's going to be getting a patent on it, and that trademark, and that's going to cost so much money.
well, I've already got the trademark in,
Okay, cool. Okay, there
or
you
else
go.
I would not be talking about it so openly.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad because I started thinking, I'm a person who's been a business consultant for years. I started thinking to myself, should we really be talking about this right now? If it's in the stages.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks
Yeah.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Let's see.
so Dr. Davis, you can.
Sure. Um, what's one thing that you wish every woman knew about ADHD?
Oh, that it's not a handicap. It's not. It is a power. It is a superpower. It is just a matter of reframing your viewpoint on yourself with your neurodivergence.
So I got an interesting question, and it'll probably be our last one, though I have a little sidekick to it. But for someone listening right now who may suspect that they have ADHD, what do you feel they should do right now? What should their next move be?
Call your doctor. If you have a therapist, talk to your therapist about it. If not,
Yeah. Talk to your
talk to your
physician.
doctor and or call your insurance company and find out a therapist that's in network.
Yeah.
And get a diagnosis, because I'm not a clinician. I can't diagnose you. I can say, yeah, you have a lot of the traits, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to prescribe you medication if you need it.
And I think that's the main thing. People need to not be, we talk about that with Waypost Counseling, which is,
Mhm.
the company Dr. Davis has. And when we do those sponsorship commercial, we can't make you make that first call.
Yeah.
You need to say, okay, you know what? Needing help is not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Right.
Reaching out for help. It's not a sign of
Absolutely.
weakness. I think that's what we say. It's a sign of strength,
Mhm.
of saying,
And
hey, you know
bravery.
what? I need to start, right. I need to start taking control of my life again. And, as you see for yourself, I'm sure you wish this happened years ago, like another 20 years earlier, at least, or 30 years earlier. But,
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
thank God, it actually did happen. Now, when I said I had a side question, how far have you gotten into writing your book? Because you talked about it earlier, your memoir.
Yeah.
I am probably 3/4 of the way, and I have somebody who's helping me take it to Amazon, get it all the way there looking all pretty. But
Mhm.
it's funny you asked me that, because I'm just this morning thinking about reaching out, and I'm not sure how to do this, to like a publisher or a literary agent, to kind of test the waters, to see what they think, give them a couple of chapters and see what they think about it. So,
Got to find one that deals with like health topics, such as, that because regular publishers, books are so hard today to sell because everything
mhm,
seems to be digital. But
Yeah.
if you find the right publicist, the right company that actually does not really self-help books, but self-awareness
right,
books, that's going to
right.
be the avenue you need to look for on that. So,
Thank you for that
keep that
suggestion.
update on us, that because
Yeah.
when the book does get released, whether you release it yourself, through Amazon and stuff, I'll add the link to the description that's
Yeah.
here,
Thank
so
you.
people can
Thank you.
always
I
follow
really
us.
appreciate that.
That's not a problem. Now, Ruth, I want to thank you again for taking the time to talk to us here this evening. And we truly wish you continued success. Best
Absolutely.
luck with your memoir and really good luck with Arctic Undies as well.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank you,
so much,
guys.
Ruth.
It's been a pleasure and great fun. I appreciate you.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Likewise.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
It amazes me with some of the stories we hear about directly from the mouths of the people who lived them, having walked the walk and having succeeded where they are today. A
Mm.
pure story, and it's a show about resilience, a desire to lead a much better life. And that's what really we talk about on this show.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times we question, and people of course, why do we do this story for? Because it's a story of resilience. We want to show no
Right.
matter what your condition is, there is a way out of it,
Yeah.
and leading a much better life. So I have two final questions
All
before we
right.
wrap up today's episode. Okay. What stood out to you most about Ruth's story?
That's a great question. What stood out the most to me really was her acceptance, and I loved how she kept going back to, this is not like basically, yeah, I have attention deficit. It is not a death sentence. This is a badge of honor. That means that there are, so I really like how she said, attention deficit's not all bad at all. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
it depends on the environment. If you have attention deficit and you're in an environment that requires sitting in one spot for a long time, basically no exciting stimuli, I mean, you're going to have issues with that. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It means it's boring and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. So I really liked how she pointed out that she's chosen to embrace that, see the bright side, and I think that's the most amazing part of her story.
Glad she never became an accountant.
Yeah, yeah.
And sitting there with numbers all day long. Okay. Last question I have for those listening who may feel broken. What did you want them to hear out of her story today?
That there is hope. There is always hope. There is always the possibility of things improving and getting better. And, I think most importantly, just remembering that help is literally a phone call away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just at our fingertips. It's just scary to ask for help, but if we can do that, it could change everything.
And I think again we've talked about it's the stigma of being scared to ask for help.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like I even said during the interview there, it's not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of strength
Yeah, it is.
to reach out. And you know what? When you exude that kind of enthusiasm afterwards and stuff, people realize, hey, it's probably a smart move on his part,
Yeah.
or her part to get the help and stuff. So You know, sometimes the most powerful moments in a person's life isn't when everything changes. It's when everything finally starts to make sense.
Ruth's story reminds us that it's never too late to understand yourself, never too late to rewrite the narrative you've been carrying for years, and never too late to come home to who you truly are.
You know, I ask that you please take a moment and hit that like button. And also, very importantly, hit that subscribe button too. It takes about a second, costs you nothing, but it does help the show get out to more people who might need to hear the message.
Yeah. Remember, you can visit our website at yourlifematterspodcast.com for more information on the show, contact information, and ways to become a guest. Again, this week, that's where that's where her story came to us. And if this episode resonated with you, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to hear this today.
You know, and as always, if you're struggling, if you're overwhelmed, and you feel like something just isn't clicking, remember, you're not broken.
Yeah. Anywhere in the US and Canada, you can pick up a phone and call or text 988. Someone's always standing by to help and listen, and the call is free. There will always be trained staff standing by to help you.
You know, remember, we're all human. We all face and deal with problems every single day. Taking the first step is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength to getting your life back. Because remember, your life does matter. Now, God bless you, and we hope to see you again next week, and we hope you'll tune in for another great show. See you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share the episode so more people can be part of these important conversations around mental health. And remember, your life matters. We hope to see you again next week.